My final thoughts on the Buffalo Bills and what they will do in the 2024 NFL Draft are coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate you all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store or Google Play. Well, folks, welcome in. This is the last conversation that we're going to have before the start of the 2024 NFL Draft. Now we're going to have conversations after night 1 and night 2 and plenty of conversations throughout day 3. But the build up and lead up and the speculation will end for me after this podcast is recorded. And so what I want to do today is start off by sharing with you the scenarios that I think will happen in round 1 for the Buffalo Bills. Then I want to get specific into what Brandon Beane needs to accomplish in this draft and talk about some of the roster ability dynamics that exist. You know, we've seen the Bills draft a lot of players throughout the years that they couldn't roster, that didn't make the team, and sign with somebody else. So we're going to talk about where the Bills really have room to add talent. And then I want to close it out with just a random list of my guys. You know, just players that I have grown very fond of at certain positions. Maybe not they'll be Bills targets, but just some more mid-round guys, just guys that I just really like. So that's what we're going to do here today. Now, one thing I do want to let you know about is that I am doing a live broadcast of the 2024 NFL Draft, night 1 and night 2. So the first 3 rounds, I'll be live on the Locked On NFL Scouting YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed. Check us out live. It'll be Kyle Krabs and I reacting to every pick. Just very hangout style. You know, it's going to be him and I just giving authentic reactions and talking through the draft as it happens. So if you'd like to join us, please check out the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast, the YouTube channel. We will be live on night 1 and night 2. Okay, let's talk about what I think the Bills are going to do in round 1. And there are 5 different things that I think are the most likely possibilities of what's going to happen. And I'm going to give them to you. I'm not sure that it's in order of 1 to 5 in terms of what I think will happen, but my guess is that one of these 5 things do happen. The first one is trading up for Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU. I think the Bills would have to get into the 12, 13, 14, 15 range, maybe 17 would be about as high as they could go or as low as they can go and still realistically get him. Obviously, this would be a deal that happens on the clock. But you think about this offense and the need for vertical receiving. He gives you size, speed down the field. He played in that LSU offense with Jaden Daniels, who's an off-script quarterback. He's very good at finding space and tracking the ball down the field. You know, a lot of parallels to Josh Allen and stylistically how he likes to play. And so I do think it's fully within the realm of possibilities for the Bills to move up to get Brian Thomas. Now, I'm guessing if they have to go to like 12 to get it done, it's going to cost you, of course, 28, 128, which is the 4th round pick, and your 1st round pick next year. I think that's what it takes. And if the Bills do that, Brian Thomas better be an absolute superstar. He better be a problem for the NFL. You're going to invest multiple 1st round picks and a 4th round pick. So a 1st round pick more than you invested in Dalton Kincaid and Stephon Diggs. My expectations will be high. Like, this dude has to be a problem for the NFL. Quickly. None of this young, developing, needs time on task. No, you're telling us that you think this guy is a bona fide star. So if the Bills move up for a receiver, no matter who it is, that's my expectation, especially if you're going to be parting with an additional first-round pick to get this player. So I'm not against it. I wouldn't do it, right? I wouldn't do it. And I'm not sitting here going to cry a river if it happens. But boy, oh boy, are my expectations going to be high, and I think deservingly so. So yeah, I think it's within the realm of possibilities for the Bills to trade up for Brian Thomas. One of the scenarios that I would be unsurprised if it happened. The next three are players that I think they could stick and pick at 28. One of them being Xavier Legette out of South Carolina. You guys know that I love Xavier Legette, one of my favorite prospects in this draft. 6'1", 222 pounds, ran sub 4.4, physical mismatch. There's not a lot of corners or really any corner in the NFL that's going to be able to really handle him in terms of physicality. And oh, by the way, he's got speed. And oh, by the way, he's good with the ball in his hands. And I think he's a better route runner than people give him credit for. And he's got ball skills down the field. Talk about a mismatch. Go get yourselves Xavier Legette. I think there are shades of A.J. Brown and Eric Moulds in what he offers. And so I'd be over the moon if the Bills sat there at 28, it turned in the card, and it was Xavier Legette. I know that people are concerned that he had a late breakout in college. I don't know, 2023 still happened. I still saw him dominate in the SEC with a terrible offensive line at South Carolina. Saw him do it against great corners from Georgia. So I'm in on Xavier Legette. Would love for him to be the pick at 28. And the Bills had a private workout with him. There's definitely interest. There's some buzz out there that this could happen. So I think that's a possibility. I think sticking and picking or maybe a slight trade up for Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver from Texas, is absolutely within the realm of possibilities. Speed for days, right? The fastest 40-yard dash in the history of the NFL scouting combine. There's not a corner in the league that can run with this guy. And he's small. That's the issue. 5'11", 165 pounds. That's where you get all kinds of nervous. But one thing that I've said about Xavier Worthy that I really respect is that despite being 165 pounds, he had over 100 targets in 3 consecutive seasons at Texas. So there is a volume component to what he's shown he can do. And yards after catch, I think he's over 7 yards after catch per reception for his career. There's appeal there. It wouldn't be my favorite scenario, but if the Bills just sat there and picked him, I could get down with that. Now, I still think there'd be a size element missing from the wide receiver core, for sure. And I'd love for them to come back and draft a Jalen Polk out of Washington or Javon Baker out of UCF to double dip and get some size because I think they need it. But it's hard to look at Xavier Worthy and not think that he's some type of mismatch that this offense needs. So trade up for Brian Thomas, stick and pick Xavier Legette, stick and pick or slightly trade up for Xavier Worthy. And I think the non-wide receiver player that makes the most sense for me is Cooper DeJean out of Iowa, the safety. This is very Billsy type player, versatile, physical, takes away the football, went to Iowa, high character, punt return ability. I think he's firmly in play if he were to be available at 28. Now, I don't know that they would pick Cooper DeJean over certain players, but I don't dismiss the realm, the idea that that could happen. So Cooper DeJean, another possibility in my mind. Maybe there's some defensive linemen if they get there, whether it's one of the top 4 edge rushers, Latu, Turner, Verse, or Chop Robinson. I have a hard time seeing the path for any of them to be there. And so that's why I think that these are the most likely scenarios. The other one is to trade out. Brandon Beane's never traded out. So there's that to be mindful of. And I think that there's a lot of landmines behind him. So let's say he wanted to trade back and he thought he could still get Xavier Legette. I don't know about that. Detroit, Kansas City, you've got Carolina at 33. You got a quick turnaround to like the Patriots again. I don't know that you get him if you trade back. So maybe there's other players they'd be satisfied with. And again, it would be fully against the grain. He's never traded back once in the first round. He trades up in the first round, except for twice. So I'm not dismissing it. He said last year they had a deal they were comfortable with to move out. You're amid a roster reset. It makes sense to have more assets. So I think there's a chance of it. I think it's probably the lowest likelihood of everything I just mentioned. So what do I expect the Bills to do? One of the following: trade up for Brian Thomas, stick and pick Xavier Legette, stick and pick or slightly move up for Xavier Worthy, stick and pick Cooper DeJean, or trade out of the first round. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll get on the podcast on Thursday after the draft and we'll talk about something that wasn't one of those things. But my intuition tells me one of those things is what's going to happen for the Bills on Thursday night. All right, in just a moment here, I want to get into specifically what I think Brandon Beane needs to accomplish in this draft and talk about the roster ability of positions that have room to roster a player. So we're going to get into that all here in just a moment, so be sure to stick with me. I've been told that I'm a competitive person. Do you think that's true? Well, it is. We're all competitive. We all have a competitive side to us, and my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but now I can also rob their vaults of riches for myself, and the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, folks. So what does Brandon Beane need to get done in this draft? The phrase that I keep coming back to is what Chris Trapasso said on this podcast when I had him on about a week or so ago. And he said this draft needs to be about writing the next chapter of the Josh Allen era. You've had a roster reset. You've said goodbye to some aging players. You got younger, and this is right in the thick of this process. You're staring at a draft where you have 10 draft picks. And so starting to build up this nucleus. Now you got some players that are part of this nucleus. Of course, Josh Allen, Deion Dawkins, Osiris Torrance, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, James Cook, Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau, Terrel Bernard, Matt Milano, Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford. You got players. But you need to start adding to that in an even more meaningful way. Getting meaningful contributors on rookie deals. That was what allowed you to have the buildup when you were enjoying the likes of Milano and Dawkins and Josh Allen and all these players, Trey White, all these players on rookie deals. And then you could go and get some fish in free agency. Well, start getting meaningful talent on rookie deals. And it is happening. Osiris Torrance, Dalton Kincaid, Terrel Bernard, James Cook, Spencer Brown. It is happening. Need to continue that. Now, when I look at the positions of need and where there's roster ability, some things really stand out to me. I think we all look at the wide receiver position and acknowledge that as the top need for the Bills entering this draft. And I think the Bills will roster up to 6 receivers. And right now, I think you have 3 that make sense to make the roster in Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and Mac Hollins. To me, you have room to draft 2 or 3 receivers. The other guys in competition right now are Justin Shorter, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella. You could probably draft 2 at least and make the team, maybe 3. So huge need at wide receiver, not only for production and impact, but to fill out your depth chart. You don't have enough there right now. I think the defensive line stands out to me. I've said it repeatedly. There is room for impact off the edge. I like Greg Rousseau. Not sure he's a sack artist. I think he can get you 6, 7, 8 sacks a year, but is he going to be that double-digit closer end a game for you. I don't know if that's him. You have AJ Epinesa. I think he's more of a defensive end 2.5. Von Miller, who knows what you're getting? Oh, by the way, he's 35, right? Like nothing long-term there. So after that, you have Casey Tuhill and Cameron Klein. The Bills have rostered as many as 5 or 6 defensive ends. Right now, you've got 4. And Rousseau, Miller, Epinesa, and Tuhill. Absolutely room here for a rostered player. Same thing with defensive tackle. You have Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones both signed for at least the next 2 seasons. But then your primary backups, Austin Johnson and Deshaun Williams, 1-year contracts. It'd be nice to have a cost control rookie that's a meaningful part of your defensive tackle rotation, right? That's what you're looking for. Instead of having to sign these veterans to 1-year deals all the time, let's have some players that can stick around, make an impact on a rookie deal. So I think you have room to roster a defensive tackle. The Bills have rostered up to 5 in previous years. And after Deshaun Williams, it's what, Eli Ankou? You have room. You absolutely have room, especially for somebody that can really rush. So I think you can roster 2 defensive linemen that you draft, preferably one off the edge and one at defensive tackle. Running back. You know you got a spot here. James Cook, Ty Johnson, and then Darrington Evans, who's never really made an NFL roster with any level of consistency. So you have room for a third running back that you're going to roster. And we talked about this, ideally size between the tackles, running, pass protection. You get those skills out of this player, but you certainly have an opening to roster a player, not to mention just filling out your depth. You're going to have to roster, or at least for the 90-man roster, to get through camp and preseason. You need 4 more backs probably. At cornerback, I think you need to plan on drafting a player that you roster here. You're going to keep 4 outside corners, so not including Taron Johnson, but 4 outside corners. You have Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford, Kyer Elam, and right now Jamarcus Ingram's the 4th guy, and that's it. So you definitely have room to draft and roster a corner. Interior offensive line. I think the Bills will roster 9 total offensive linemen. And right now, you think Dawkins, Edwards, McGovern, Torrance, Brown, your 5 starters. I think your backups are Ryan Vandemark, Lyle Collins, Alec Anderson, Will Clapp, and Tommy Doyle. So that's 10. You don't think that you can draft somebody that can beat out one of those players? I certainly think you can. I mean, I'm not counting on much from Tommy Doyle. Injured back-to-back seasons with an ACL tear. Lyle Collins has been injured for the last 2 years. Alec Anderson and Ryan Vandemark, I like their trajectory as young players, but let's be honest, they haven't proven much. I think you absolutely have room to roster an offensive lineman. So you talk about Beane having 10 draft picks. Well, there's path to rosterability in multiple spots. Not to mention special teams. Look at the linebacker situation. Right now, the Bills only have 5 linebackers under contract. Terrel Bernard, Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, Nicholas Moreau, and Balin Spector. That's it. Like, you need 4 more of those. Now, you're probably going to roster 5 or 6, but you need to have bodies here to get through camp and preseason and have meaningful competition for this roster. And then, ultimately, things change fast when it comes to depth in the NFL. One injury, and all of a sudden, you're nervous, right? Oh, man, this guy's gone. Well, what now? Or one snap away from having nobody, right? Plenty of room for roster ability for draft picks. Maybe not 10, but 8. I think you certainly have a path for that. And, of course, things change. You never know. Like, you never know when in the middle of summer you're going to find out that Nyheim Hines is out for the season. It happened with Kiko Alonso. Remember that? He's some kind of off-season training thing. Like, stuff happens. Things can get thin and tight quickly where you thought it was a position of strength. As of right now, the Bills have 63 players on their roster. You're allowed to have up to 90 during the offseason. So you have 17 players. So between draft picks, undrafted free agents, and then any other veterans that you add along the way, there's room. There's room. This is not the level of depth that we've seen the last couple of years for a Bills roster entering a draft. I see the path, a very clear path to roster ability at a bunch of positions. So hopefully that was enlightening for you to understand. I've gotten this question quite a bit through our subtext, different emails, DMs, people that send me stuff all the time. They ask, can they roster these players? Because we've seen Jack Anderson and Luke Tenuta and others throughout the last couple of years, Alex Austin, later round picks that there's no path for them to make the roster. They get cut, signed by other teams. Next thing you know, Alex Austin's playing for the Patriots and picking off Josh Allen, right? It's the stuff that happens. I think this roster is in a little bit of a different spot, and I think they can retain a lot of these draft picks, and hopefully they do. Hopefully they draft a bunch of players that turn out to be really good, that make roster spots, and the Bills can really fill out their depth with young talent on cost-controlled rookie deals. All right, folks, in just a second, I want to give you a random list of players that I really like, guys that maybe I haven't spoken a lot about on this podcast. As I've finished my evaluations, there's just players that I gravitate towards. They're not necessarily the best players in the draft, but prospects that I would label as my guys. I'm going to give those to you here in just a moment, so be sure to stick with me. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has the tools to help you find professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats right now, it might not have the time or resources to hire. Well, good news. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. And LinkedIn is always looking for ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, folks. My guys for the 2024 NFL Draft. I like lots of players. I think Marvin Harrison's unbelievable. Joe Alt, Troy Fautanu. I can sit here and rave about those players all day long. But I want to kind of get into maybe a couple of late first-round guys, but also just second, third, fourth-round guys that I really like. Will these players be Bills? I don't know. Probably not. Probably most of these won't. Probably none of them. I mean, there's a good chance none of them are Bills. But I just want to kind of just tell you some of my draft crushes out there. I could start by saying Cooper DeJean and Xavier Legette. I think you guys know that. I really like both of those players, so I won't get on another soapbox talking about them. I'm going to go actually erase them from my list and get into some players that I maybe haven't to this point. Trey Benson, this running back out of Florida State. Got a chance to watch him this past weekend. Running backs was the last position that I did. And so I spent all weekend working on running backs, and I got to Trey Benson, and I was pretty impressed. I mean, good size, 6 foot, 216 pounds, explosive, runs in the 4.3s, averages over 4 yards after contact per rush, never fumbled in college. And a lot of his production comes on breakaway runs that he gets because he has good vision, good acceleration, and good creativity as a runner. I just think he's a total package. You want size, athleticism, inside, outside running ability, can catch the ball, can block, never fumbles, young, durable, a little bit of injury concerns, actually. He had some stuff to be mindful of, and hasn't commanded actually a massive workload, which I like about him because he comes in the NFL with really low mileage. So he's my favorite back in this class. I'm not pounding the table for the Bills to draft a running back in the second round, but I don't think I'd be mad if Trey Benson was a Bill and he was in for an official visit with the team. I like a couple players from Kansas, believe it or not. I mean, I'm watching Kansas players and really liking them. One of them is Dominic Puny. He's an offensive lineman from Kansas, 43-game starter, has played left tackle, left guard, and right tackle. I just saw a guy that played with a lot of power. Physical player, really firm hands. And when you have strong hands and you know how to work your hands, you can control reps. And I saw that from him. Yeah, maybe sometimes you wish he was a little bit more under control and didn't fold at the waist. But I think this player is experienced, versatile, and just has a level of play strength that I really like. I think he can move bodies and he has enough athleticism. I think he's probably going to play guard in the NFL. But I think as a mid-round offensive lineman, he's somebody that I really enjoyed. The other Kansas player is Austin Booker, this edge rusher. He was so interesting because whenever I start watching a player, the first thing I do is I really try to profile their body type and get a feel for their movement skills. And then I start to really understand, okay, what kind of football player are they? But, size and athleticism is kind of the first thing I look for. And I'm looking at Austin Booker and I'm like, I don't know if this guy has the body composition to be a meaningful edge rusher in the NFL. He certainly doesn't look overly explosive. But then you just watch him play and he just keeps getting off blocks. He is super slippery. Like nobody could stay latched to this guy. And he's 6'4", 253, 33 7/8 on the arm length. So pretty long arms. And this past season, he had 12 tackles for loss and 8 sacks. Only played 482 snaps. Like very limited playing time. I think he has about 505 snaps for his career in college. But he broke out this past season in a limited role. And I just feel like his natural ability to reduce his surface area and get off blocks and use his length is exciting for me. Get him in the weight room, get him bulked up a little bit, work on that explosiveness. And I think this guy could be a steal in the 3rd or 4th round. So one of my favorite kind of sleeper edge rushers, Austin Booker out of Kansas. And he's young. He's only 21 years old. So I think there's just a lot of upward momentum. Mohamed Kamara, the edge rusher from Colorado State, I'm a big fan of. Super productive player, 45.5 tackles for loss, 30.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles in college. Explosive and flexible. I mean, that's a good combination. I'm not sure why there's not more hype here. I see draft boards. He's like a fringe top 100 player. This is firmly a day 2 prospect for me. So I know I talked a lot about talent cliffs at the edge position, but if you can come back and get Austin Booker or Mohamed Kamara in the 3rd or 4th round, I think that's a heck of an opportunity for your defensive end rotation. I also love Michael Hall, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. I don't know why there's not more hype here. He's a good player. He's like 290 pounds, long arms, super dynamic in terms of explosiveness, twitched up athlete. Didn't have a ton of production at Ohio State, but just watch him play. The way that he is able to control reps with extension, get off blocks, wreak havoc. Like, I think he's a top 50 pick all day long. I think he's probably a 3 tech. Maybe you can play him as like a 4-eye in some schemes. If he got to 60, I'd be through the moon. I don't think he will. Somebody should pick him, and the Browns should pick him in wherever they pick, 55 or whatever with their top pick. I think he's awesome. And I've seen some draft boards where he's like 80th, 90th, 100th player on the board. I see a top 50 player all day long. Jarvis Brownlee out of Louisville. He's a corner. Boy, did I enjoy watching his tape. Probably one of the more aggressive press man corners in this class. Like super willing to get up in the face of receivers and just crowd them and really, really try to suffocate receivers right at the line of scrimmage. I'm a sucker for that. Like if you're willing to get up in the face of a receiver, knowing that guy can get by you and you're just going to do everything you can to crowd that release and then you stay in phase, I'm a fan. I don't know why this guy doesn't have more hype. 26 or 28 pass breakups, 6 interceptions, 32.25-inch arms, 5'11", 194. Good tape. He's physical. He tackles. He's got good coverage instincts. He takes away the ball. I think he's a stud. And then 2 safeties I'll shout out. Malik Mustafa out of Wake Forest. Dude's an animal. The way that he flies around and will fill from depth and tackle and hit people. But then he's also got coverage instincts. I'm a big fan, and he's very athletic. If you like Cam Kinchins from Miami, this is just a better version of that player in my mind. A more athletic version of that player. That's just a way better prospect in my opinion. I'm a big Malik Mustafa fan. Started his career at Richmond, got his chance to go to Wake Forest, turns into a big-time leader and impact player for that secondary. And the last guy is DeJean Taylor Demerson, safety out of Texas Tech. I don't know why there's not more hype here. I think he's a firm top 100 player for me. I think he's one of the most versatile safeties in this class. I just trust him to do so many things. Like, first of all, coverage, like deep ball, single high, that type of guy. I think he's got it. I think he's got range, ball skills, coverage instincts from any coverage alignment. I trust him in man, obviously split zones, and he tackles. So I think he's a very complete safety prospect that just nobody's talking about him. So sign me up for DeJean Taylor Demerson. So just some of my guys: Xavier Legette, Cooper DeJean, Trey Benson, Dominic Puny, Austin Booker, Mo Kamara, Michael Hall, Jarvis Brownlee, Malik Mustafa, DeJean Taylor Demerson. No idea if any of them will be Bills or not, but I did a lot of work on this draft class, and as I think about the guys that just give me the warm fuzzies that maybe don't get enough hype, those are players that I wanted to shout out. All right, folks, that's it. The next conversation we're going to have on this podcast is breaking down whatever the heck the Bills do in the first round. I'm excited for it. I'm over the speculation. I'm ready for the draft to be here. Hopefully this conversation helped you get a little closer to it, and hopefully you'll be part of our coverage on the Locked On NFL Scouting YouTube channel. We're live Thursday night and Friday night, and then, of course, podcast coming all weekend long. I'm going to stay up late, obviously, after I get done with the broadcast on Thursday and Friday. I'm getting to work on Locked On Bills, and I don't have a live broadcast on Saturday, so literally after every pick, I'm getting to work on podcasts. I'm going to break these players down for you. You're going to know exactly what the Buffalo Bills are getting. And then all next week, we're having big picture conversations about this draft class, what it means for the future of the scheme, what it means for certain position groups. We're going to have some big team building conversations next week as the Bills have, an influx of young talent, a fresh look at what this roster looks like, which not only matters now, but you get these guys on rookie deals. I mean, it gives you some clues into the immediate future as well. So just so much to get into. I can't wait for it. Make sure you don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.